What's going on, folks? This is Coach Marcus from Pro Fan Talk, and the XFL is back. I will be watching. They had a pretty good first week. Must admit, all of the games were pretty good. It does take some getting used to, and I think only because you're not used to the names, you're not used to the colors, you're not used to the logos. So it's going to take some getting used to. But at the end of the day, it's football. I will have a biased opinion of it for the simple fact that I'm a veteran of the World League. So I know what it means to go play just so you can have an opportunity to play. A lot of these guys were released, got cut from teams, contract issues, the numbers game, all that stuff that you hear. But at the end of the day, these guys are just looking for a chance to put their skills to use and get on that field and keep playing the game that I love, game that they love. So every opportunity they can get, they're going to take it. So it sounds like they're getting paid pretty good money. When we played, we had a 10-week season, and we made roughly 10 grand, maybe a little bit more than that, depending on how, with the playoffs, what position you played. Really, it was the quarterbacks and everybody else. These guys are getting paid a lot more money. For a 10-week season, I believe I looked it up, and it looks like they're getting around 60 grand. Quarterbacks will get a little bit more. Plus, they get bonuses if they win the championship and things like that. So, they're paying good money. So, technically, you could play in the XFL, and if you handled your money right, you'd be okay for the remainder of the year. You might have to do some things, but you could live within your means and you can make it. So that's always a good incentive when you can make a good chunk of change in not a lot of time. It's not going to be NFL money. Heck, it's probably not even USFL money, but it's good money. If you're making 60 grand in 10 weeks, some people don't make 60 grand in a year. So when you look at it that way, that's pretty decent money. And that will always keep good athletes and good players in the league. The money is always key. So, but they had some good games this weekend. Everything that I watched, it kept me engaged with it. Some of the rules are different, and you got to figure out what's going on with that. But I think most of the rules they've done, they did a good job with. At the end of the day, the problem with the XFL the first time around when Vince McMahon tried to do it was he tried to change too much. And it was just like, let him play football. Don't get too cute. And Vince McMahon was a little bit too big for his britches, and he was trying to do too much. So just let the boys play ball. And that's what they have. The few changes that they have, they make sense. When you look at the NFL, nobody returns kicks anymore. All of the kicks go in the end zone. You see the guy in the back of the end zone with both his hands out. So you know it's not coming out. So special teams is fading away in the NFL. So what they do, they bring it back. So what the rules are, when they kick off, you've got a 5-yard gap between kick coverage and kick return. So the only person that's deep is the return guy. You can't go until the guy catches the ball. You don't get too many breakaways, but you end up getting the ball where you normally would if it was a regular kickoff. So I just thought that was different. The one team, I think it was St. Louis, that had a kickoff return, and they did like a reverse. So it wasn't just like a straight shot, get 10 yards apart. That would give you just a little bit more room, but it is what it is. Something different, something to look at. The extra points are good. So if you score a touchdown, they'll line you up on a 2-yard line. That's worth 1 point. They don't kick extra points. They line you up on the 5-yard line. If you make that, that's 2 points. And you go on the 10-yard line. And if you convert that, that's 3 points. That's something a little bit different. The timing of the game times, the 35-second clock starts immediately, and it's a running clock. The clock will start following an incomplete pass and an out-of-bounds play, so they're trying to keep the games moving. Clock will stop on first downs, and after 2-minute warnings, of either half. Now, the one thing, the game this weekend, it was San Antonio and St. Louis. Less than 2 minutes left. San Antonio was up 15-3. I'm sitting here looking at my notes because there was a lot that happened. And this went down because of the new rules. San Antonio was up 15-3. St. Louis scores with like a minute 25 left. St. Louis converts a 3-point extra point. So now it's 15-12. So instead of kicking an onside kick, you have the option. They line you up on your own 25 coming out, and you got to convert a 4th and 15. If you don't convert it, the other team gets the ball right up at the 25. So they go for it, they make it, and then they go down and score and win the game. So they turn the game around from 15-3 to 18-15 in a minute 25. So that was kind of interesting to see. But they're trying to do something different, and I like what I saw. The attendance, Vegas against Arlington at Choctaw Stadium, that was about 12,000. So it looked kind of sparse. They had not enough people and too much space. What they should have done, in my opinion, was they should have consolidated everybody in the 2 bleacher sections on either sideline, because that's where most of the cameras hit. So at least when you do that, you got all of those people behind the benches, and it just gives the appearance of more people. Vipers and the Renegades at Choctaw, that was about 12 grand. Orlando at Houston, that was about 12 grand, almost 13,000. The St. Louis and San Antonio game, that had 24,000. And then Seattle at the DC Defenders, that was another one for 12,000. So very similar to what happened to us in the World League. That first year in Scotland, we didn't have many people coming to our games, and we were the worst team in the league in 95. So we would average anywhere between 9 to 11,000 a game. You know, that's high school numbers. But for people in Scotland, they didn't have American football, so it was all new to them. You had Scotland, you had Barcelona. Barcelona had decent numbers. Amsterdam had decent numbers. Germany was the hot spot. Germany had 20 and 30,000 people at every game, because Germany, they were used to American culture. They were used to American football. So they were having things like, you go to the stadium. I believe it was the old Olympic Stadium. I can't remember. But I just remember the first time we played in Frankfurt, at the time, this was 95, right? So you got to remember, they had Nintendo Gran Turismo on the Jumbotron. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, because they knew how to throw a party. So it was a lot of people there, very festive attendance. So everything was geared toward getting Frankfurt and Germany involved, because they always had the best turnouts. So they wanted to show that as much as they could, because their games were always packed, and it was always a fun time. So this is kind of the same thing in San Antonio. It looks like whatever they're doing, San Antonio's figured it out. However they did their marketing or whatever in the Alamo Dome, that game was packed, a lot of fun. So hopefully they can learn from that and they can keep it going. So I always look for these guys to get another opportunity to play. Like I was saying before, Cavante Turpin, and they got a lot of guys that used to play in the league and got cut, didn't live up to snuff. You know, they're just taking their next shot to see if they can get back in the league. But I'll be interested to see how many guys, based on how things go towards the end of the season, how many guys get a shot in a camp next year. Because that's the real telltale sign, is if this thing is going to stay or not. Now, this is supposed to be backed by the NFL. So I would imagine they're going to have some XFL guys in camp. They're going to have some USFL guys in camp too. And I thought it was very, very smart that The Rock did XFL right before the USFL starts. So the XFL is going to be done when the USFL starts, so they don't have to compete with each other. I thought that was a smart move. So soon after the Super Bowl, people still got football on their minds, for better or for worse. And it's something to watch. It's good to watch. I think the star of it right now is Dean Blandino, in my opinion. He's the star of the XFL, because every time there's a officiating call. They literally show him up in the booth with all of the computers and the screens and how he's running back and looking at everything in slow motion to make sure he gets the call right. And even if you don't think he got it right, he is explaining his thought process. So it is very transparent, and I think that is the best thing that they can do right now, because that's what the NFL's got to look at. Because I know the NFL's throwing in some stuff. Let's see if we can try that next year. Because the NFL's got a problem. The NFL's got a big problem, because every time they get something wrong, everybody in the world can see it, and then sometimes it's very obvious. Dean Blandino was in a situation where the guy threw an interception, but they were both fighting for the ball, and they came down with it in the end zone. Now, to me, it looked like an interception. But what he made a point to say was, Blandino did, the ref on the field called it a touchdown. So when they challenge the play, they are challenging if it was a touchdown. So what he's looking for is there anything that can refute that call? Is there anything that he can see that would overturn it? And I thought it was an interception, but from what he had to look at, he said he couldn't look at the tape and tell there was not enough evidence to overturn the call. And what he said that was very interesting was, if they had called it an interception, it would have been the same result. There was not enough information or that he could see to overturn that call. So they called it a touchdown because he couldn't overturn it. And he literally said if they would have called it an interception, he wouldn't have been able to overturn that either. So it was very interesting to see that thought process. And he's the star of the league right now, because everybody wants to see what these officials are doing. And at least, even though, in my opinion, he got that call wrong because it looked like an interception to me, but it's good to have some transparency and you can see what they're thinking about. So if they continue to do that, they're going to get that slow build up, eyes watching it, and then you're going to hear some names, and you're going to continue to hear those names, and then you're going to associate it, those names with the league, and eventually you're going to see somebody pop up in the league or on a team or in camp or in preseason somewhere, but you're going to make the connection. So as long as they do that, and long as they get a couple people on a team, that's all they need to keep it going. They got the television deals and all of that kind of stuff. If they play the game smart, the NFL has a legit minor leagues. Same thing with the USFL. The Rock was smart to get in bed with the NFL just to keep it going. They're not paying a lot of money. They're not doing a lot of nonsense. Even with the rule changes, at the end of the day, they're still playing football. And that's the most important thing. They're betting on it. So if Vegas is in on it, it's got to be legit. So I think they got something good going. I will be watching the games this week to see what comes next. I'm invested. You should check it out. Do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe to this channel so you can become a member of this team and we can keep this thing going.